From Bold Gold Studios in the Liberty Theater Arts Building in downtown Liberty, welcome to another episode of Ion Sullivan. I am Mike McGuire. I'm the show's host, and I'm joined today, as I am each week, by the chairman, Rob Doherty. Rob, happy Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, it's a very nice Tuesday. It was nice and warm. I did wake up in Florida this morning. It was much nicer there than here.
Well, it certainly was. My wife woke up in Florida this morning and told me that it's magnificent, but I should stay here and continue to make money so she can stay there.
Right. My wife says the same thing.
Well, we are really ratcheting this show up today.
We are.
Because we've got a Hall of Famer here with us today.
Top Rope Entertainment.
Entertainment.
That's what's going on.
And folks, for audience benefit, today's show is going to go for 12 hours because that's how much time we're going to need to cover the multi-dimensional life and experience of our guest, the Honorable Richard Herring. Rich, welcome to Ion Sullivan.
Thanks, Mike. Rob, it's good to see you as well.
It's always a pleasure.
I wish I was back in Florida. I flew up last week, and I'm ready to go back.
So the common denominator here is that we all have places in Florida, and we're all here in the dead of winter.
Yeah, freezing.
Well, I started off by saying we have a Hall of Famer. Rich Herring is a member of the WWE Hall of Fame. He is recently retired. He was a member of the New York State Athletic Commission, where he was responsible for boxing and wrestling events throughout New York State. And in that capacity, he has worked very, very closely with a number of world-renowned athletes. And he also, in his spare time, spent 40 years as a local town and village judge. And I say town and village judge because simultaneously he was the town judge for the town of Liberty, the village judge for the village of Liberty, and when they were in need, and when aren't they in need in Fallsburg, he was the town judge for Fallsburg. So he handled
doing
all
three
three.
courts.
He handled all three, and also was a vice president of WWE, worked very, very closely with them, and his wonderful and way too early and soon departed wife was the chief clerk of the Surrogates Court. So the Herrings were interwoven not only in this county, but throughout New York State and the world when it comes to WWE.
Can we get Rich?
Let's get Rich on because this is not a eulogy.
Not for me yet, right?
Yeah.
We all been out for a long time for you.
So, Rich, Rob and I are going to go out to lunch, and you can just take us through how you got into the WWE, which wasn't even called the WWE at that time.
Right. At that time, it was WWF.
Right.
They had two W's or three W's then? It was
The original
Worldwide Wrestling Federation.
So WW, two W's.
Okay.
Was when Vince Sr. had it, not Vince Jr. as we called him, and that was Worldwide Wrestling.
Yeah.
In 1980, Vince and Linda McMahon bought the company from Vince's dad and changed it to World Wrestling Entertainment, and they just dropped that one W.
So I have a question. Is that a true story that his father would never sold him the company if he knew what he was going to do with the company?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting. Vince, so Linda was a legal secretary. Vince worked for Solo Cups. He used to sell Solo Cups.
Really?
Yeah.
Red Solo Cups.
Right. He was he sold restaurant supplies Solo Cups.
And I thought it was Toby Keith that made them popular.
Yeah, no, it was Vince
And,
McMahon.
This was Vince McMahon.
And then Vince, did some work with his dad. His dad, unfortunately, became ill.
And now this is when it's on at like 12 o'clock at night,
Right.
On Saturday after racing from Roosevelt, I think it was.
Right. Well, I guess his father started it at Capitol. It was that Capitol Wrestling, they called it, from the Capitol Arena.
Okay.
Outside of Washington, Maryland.
Landover, Maryland.
Right, in Maryland. And when he got sick in around 1980, Vince told his dad he was going to buy the company. And his dad told him, okay, this is how much I want. You can pay me out. but if you miss one payment, I'm taking the company back.
Wow.
Yeah, and they
Nice
bought
job,
the
Pops.
yeah they bought the company, which was really a regional wrestling company, and even when I started with them, we were regionalized. We did New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, those areas, and we did high school shows,
Oh yeah. I mean,
county fairs. We used to play Orange County.
So I'm 56, right? So when I was a kid, and Bob Backlund was the champion, right?
Right.
When he beat Billy Graham, and that iconic cover where it's the black cover, and he's standing there like this. So Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair and Harley Race and all. You never saw those guys. They were all in different regions of the country. Like you never even thought of seeing them in New York.
Right. Well, what happened? They were regionalized, and there were multiple wrestling companies throughout the United States.
Okay.
The NWA,
Yeah.
and ECW. There were so many of them.
I remember when I was probably 10 years old, they were at St. Nicholas of Tallentine, right? And it was the Lumberjacks wrestled Dominic DeNucci and Dino Bravo. S.D. Jones was there. I mean, these were guys you saw on your TV, and it was, it was unreal.
Sure.
To a 10-year-old. I mean, it was unreal.
Yeah. So we were doing regional shows. We were basically a Northeast regional company. We did Liberty High School twice.
We did Sullivan County
and we
Community
did-
College
right,
a couple
and-
of times.
But the show in Liberty High School, we actually taped 2 days of television in the gym, and I set it up that we did I think we did the money for those shows for we did for the Liberty Fire Department one time, and then the youth division for the second time.
The
So we had
second
given
time
we had-
was when Alan Gary had donated a building,
Correct.
and it was going to become a youth center
right
So I mean,
up on Lake Street.
on Lake Street.
Yeah.
I mean,
correct.
imagine like John Cena coming to Liberty High School now. I mean, that's unheard of.
Well, the Undertaker, which was one of the biggest stars, did Liberty High School.
Well, we had Bret Hart at Sullivan
Sullivan
Community
Community
College.
College. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did the
These
community
guys.
college as well.
Yeah.
So and those shows, I set up to do as benefit shows for local organizations.
I mean, like to even think about that today would
Well,
just wouldn't happen.
so what happened was, again, it was regionalized. Orange County Fair, Catholic Youth Center in Scranton, Pennsylvania. We did all local.
Okay.
And Vince decided one day that I can expand this company.
Yeah.
And he basically made offers that people couldn't refuse, buying out other promoters, or he said, I'm going to go into your area and promote
recruit,
and promote shows. And that's what he did. He envisioned becoming a national promoting company.
Which I have to tell you is, to think about it as a kid, would be like you could never imagine. I mean, I watched it last night on Netflix, and they were yeeting for 18 minutes. I mean, the whole in Cleveland, the whole stadiums. I mean, jumping up. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Well, Vince was a visionary, an absolute visionary. WrestleMania 1, which we did at Madison Square Garden, I was involved in that show. I mean, he bet the bank on that. He mortgaged his house
Wow.
on that show. But he decided that, as I remember the story, that he wanted it to be shown nationally. But there was, other than by network, there was no way of really doing that. So he came up with the concept of closed circuit TV.
Sure.
And what they did is they rented arenas and high schools and armories all throughout the United States. And they set up these big movie screens and brought in the equipment and uplinks and downlinks for satellite, and really created the first closed circuit television, which was really the impetus for pay-per-view later on.
Right.
Which
And so he was basically he was the forefront of what we considered to now to be pay-per-view.
that's just incredible. I mean, that is incredible. And now you're part of this whole scene
Yeah.
as it's moving along.
Yep. As you know, as
I mean, I gotta imagine you in the legal department, like, where's he coming up with this?
He wants to do what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like I don't even know how to write this contract.
I mean, I used to say that when you would walk into my
Yeah,
office. You want to do
exactly.
what?
Exactly.
All right.
yeah. So I wasn't with him when he came up with the first concept. When he first did the first WrestleMania, although I was involved in it, but I was with the State Athletic Commission at that time, which regulated wrestling. And
Oh, they even regulated that, even
yeah.
though we
right,
know
and
the
that's
outcome.
basically how I got involved with WWE, was with my affiliation through the New York State Athletic Commission, which is another story we can get into.
So, I mean, I go back to Saturday night shows with my aunt, and we would sit at, 8 o'clock, and watch Bruno Sammartino. And that's how far that I go back. And she, of course, is Italian, and Bruno was Italian. Or so
Oh, yeah.
he said he was.
Oh, he was.
Oh, he
From
looks
Pittsburgh.
Italian.
He
Yeah.
was Italian. And when she yell at that
He had hair on his
television-
back. He's definitely Italian.
Yeah. She would yell. So, as I said, this show's 12 hours long. Our crew here is going to bringing in food as
coming
we
in
go.
shifts.
They'll be
Yeah,
coming
it'll
and
be
going.
great. It'll be great.
You thought Jerry Lewis had the telethon down.
Yeah.
We're actually going to have the telethon here. So we want to move along, but there's truly a treasure trove of information. But whenever people hear these kind of interviews, I know when I do, what you want to hear is some of the backstory.
Correct.
And we had an opportunity, Rob and I, about a year or so ago, it's longer than that now, a couple of years ago, to go to Stamford, Connecticut to the world headquarters of WWE, and Rich gave us a tour of the warehouse.
Yeah.
And
Well,
some of the things that we saw in the warehouse
so-
was history.
So we saw at the time, I believe they had 5 buildings, right? Scattered throughout.
Yes.
Right. So we actually went through all 5 buildings, but the warehouse part was unreal because if you watch wrestling, it was just. There was so much stuff in there. The hearse that the Undertaker's in. There was 27 caskets. Stacked up. As far as the eye could see.
Probably
those sets.
probably more than that.
They had full sets.
Full sets
Yeah.
there. Where they do the shows. So you see one show, and and right around the corner was the other setup for the show. They had a real ring there. And let me tell you something. You don't realize how hard those ropes are until you get close to it and you can feel it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The warehouse. I think it's still on A&E. It was last year. Was actually a show. Ben Brown, who's the archivist for WWE, and they had a one show on AE which was called WWE Treasures, where they went around the country buying memorabilia that people had collected over the years to bring it back to WWE for a potential Hall of Fame. We have a Hall of Fame. But
And you're in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I was inducted in 2021.
Is anyone looking to buy you or?
Yeah,
Not for sale yet.
A fossil. But I think eventually, with everything that they have, as you guys know, or having toured the warehouse, I think eventually, and especially now, with what was considered a merger and really a buyout of WWE, that Endeavor, which is the William Morris agency, talent agency, they've merged it with into TKO, which is the UFC, WWE, and then other properties of Endeavor, which is Professional Bull Riding, On Location, which is one of the biggest companies that does all of the major sporting events, their meet and greets and everything else. That's part of it, IMG. That's now all merged into TKO. Being a true global entertainment company, I think within the next couple of years, and I don't have a basis of saying this, it's just a belief, that you will probably see a Hall of Fame building,
Museum.
a museum set up somewhere, whether it's Connecticut, New York, California, Nevada. I think eventually you'll see something of that nature. And as you've seen, going through the warehouse, the amount of memorabilia and things they have there, they could build a multi-story Hall of Fame, and you wouldn't be able to see everything in one day.
No, it was just stacked on top. I mean, it was so much stuff. 2 floors of it. I mean, it was so much stuff. And now they're going out and buying more than $1 million back. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, so, it's, people see wrestling, they turn on the screen and they just see what's, going on in the ring. The back end story of the company and how big it is one of the biggest, from a sporting entertainment company. They do more with Make-A-Wish, Connor's Cure, so many charitable organizations. They have a whole department that handled that. A woman named Sue Aitchison really ran that department while I was there.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you took us, and again, it's 5 buildings, multiple stories each building, and you're like, all right, this is the art department. There's a whole floor of it, and then you see all these logos and there were some older logos there. There was some work that they were working on that I didn't see for a couple of years till, I saw him down the road, which is kind of funny because I saw him sitting there on a drawing board, when I'm walking through, and you gave, I mean, when you say we had a full access pass.
Correct.
I mean, I was a wrestling fan since I was a kid, and I watch it now with my sons, because, it's still, it's good entertainment.
Well, I'll tell you, I was telling the guys from Bull Gold earlier before we started the podcast.
Jacob is a big fan.
Yeah, and we were talking. I think we did an hour unrecorded podcast before you started. But WWE.
No, Dawn, you can't charge us for that.
No. So WWE.
Wow.
Is, as far as I know, and again, it's only what I believe, was the only sporting entertainment company that actually owned their own TV production trucks. Most, if you watch baseball, football, basketball, hockey, whatever, most of them rent their TV production trucks from NEP out of Pittsburgh, California, wherever they are. WWE owned their own TV trucks, $50, $60 million trucks. They had 2 production trucks in case one went out. Their own audio trucks, and we were up in, and I was at the show. We did a pay-per-view in Columbia, South Carolina. It was called In Your House. Was the name of the pay-per-view, and we were there, and there was a hurricane coming in.
Wow!
And the hurricane came in, and the building lost power. Went out. And it was after that the company turned around and says, we'll never allow that to happen again. And they bought their own generator truck.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
And sometimes...
Major networks don't have that.
Yeah, no, they don't. And if you watch, sometimes you'll see today a lot of the wrestlers coming in through, the back entrances and stuff, and you'll see some of the trucks. You'll sometimes see the big generator truck. You could light up probably half of Sullivan County with the power that this truck has. It can light up any stadium, not just an arena, any stadium. So, the foresight that they had in being able to make sure that when they go on the air, they'll be on the air.
They're going on the air.
Of course, television is the key to the success of any sports enterprise.
Right.
It's why the NFL is such a mega business in this country today and the world today, because it plays well on television.
Right.
Baseball is more of a game to be in the ballpark. Football is a television game, and WWE is a perfect match for television, and they create the stories that keep people tuned in and riveted.
Right. It takes 18 to 22 tractor trailers to move the sets all the equipment, the lighting equipment, the truss, lighting truss, stage, the rigging, all of that. It's all self-contained, and it's 18 to 22 tractor trailers.
That's unbelievable.
So, Rich, we want to move along here, and one
Maybe
part of
you
me wants
do,
to
I
move
mean.
along. I'm not really interested in moving along at all. I want to suck in all of that. But something that touched me. I've known you for 30 years or more,
Right.
and I've always known that you were part of WWE and that you worked for them and you had a responsible job there. But it didn't really hit me the magnitude of your relationship there until the tragic death of Luann.
Right.
And Linda McMahon and Stephanie came here to Liberty for her funeral, and Paul and Vince were not here. Paul, I guess most people know him as Triple H.
Correct.
Paul and Vince were not here because they were on location someplace else and couldn't be here. But why don't you talk about your relationship with the McMahon family over the years?
Well, talking about my wife, and Mike, you were with me
Yes.
the night that she passed away,
Yep.
which was a Monday night.
Yes, it was.
And Vince and Paul were doing Monday Night Raw. And you were actually with me. We had left the hospital to go out for dinner.
Because she wanted to be left alone.
She wanted to be left
We
alone.
were there all day.
Yeah, we were there from early in the morning, and I think she knew,
She knew.
and we went out for dinner.
And it was going to be on her terms because, let's face it, everything was on her terms.
Oh, absolutely! You talk about a hot-headed Italian. That was my wife, and we had gone out for dinner, if you remember.
I remember. Yeah.
And the phone rang, and it was the hospital that she had passed. It wasn't unexpected. We knew the seriousness
Right.
of her cancer, and we knew it was going to happen. We didn't know when. But if you remember, I had called, and I don't remember who I called, but it wasn't Vince or Paul. Or, actually, I think I called our general counsel to let him know.
It was somebody in
the
legal
office.
that you had
Yeah,
called.
I think it was our general counsel to let him know that she had passed, that I was going to obviously be in. We're sitting having dinner, and this, now bear in mind, the TV show is on live Monday night.
Yep.
My cell phone goes off, and it was Vince,
That's correct.
and he was calling me from what we called the gorilla position, which was the production position that's generating the show, wanting to know what I needed, if I'm okay, and we were on the phone. I finally turned around and said, Vince, get off the phone. You're doing the TV show. And he says, all right. And then Steph called me, Steph
Right.
McMahon, and she says, where are you? And I said, I'm here. She says, I'm coming up. And this was on a Monday night. I said, you're not coming up. She says, I'm coming up. Somebody's got to be with you. And that's how close I was with the McMahon family. I said, no, I'm with Mike McGuire and some other friends. I'll be fine. So that was Monday that she passed. Friday, was the funeral.
The funeral was Friday.
And again, so TV is Monday and Friday.
Yeah.
I get a call from, so before that, Linda McMahon was running for the U.S. Senate
That is
I remember
out of
that.
Connecticut.
Yeah,
Yep.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And the primary was 2 days, was on that following Tuesday.
Okay.
So she was campaigning straight through that weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
Statewide.
Statewide.
It's a small state, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
but-
But she was running statewide for the U.S. Senate. I get a call from Mike Schiff, Sullivan County Sheriff, that he had gotten a call from the Linda McMahon's campaign headquarters, that she canceled all her appearances on that Friday to come up to the funeral with Steph, and that they were flying in to Sullivan County Airport, but didn't know where the cemetery was and how to
Yeah.
get there and so on. and whether Mike could arrange to, have somebody there. And he said, well, he would do it because he was going to come to the funeral anyhow. And Linda McMahon, who's literally 2 days from running in a primary for U.S. Senate, and Steph McMahon came up for the funeral. So that's how close I am with them, and I am still to today. And of course, as you know, Linda later on became the secretary of the Small Business Administration under the president's first term, and she's nominated now for Secretary of Education. Her confirmation hearings, I think, start next week.
Yeah. No, it's truly for our audience's benefit. Rich is as much of a part of the McMahon family and the McMahon history as anybody, and it's truly a treasure trove of information. Rich, how did the whole New York State Athletic Commission come to be?
So that was my entree into WWE.
Sure.
I was friends with Floyd Patterson. Floyd was
The boxer
former
from
heavy.
Poughkeepsie.
No, he's from New Paltz.
Oh, New Paltz.
New
sorry.
Paltz, Poughkeepsie, both areas. And Floyd, of course, was former two-time heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah.
Olympic
Custom model kid.
Customato kid, yeah. And we became friends. And Floyd was one of the commissioners on the New York State Athletic Commission under Hugh Carey, the former governor. And we got to be good friends. We had gone out for dinner. He used to come up here to the area a couple of times. And I'll get into a very funny story about that. So he said to me, we were talking. I said, well, I love boxing. I love, the wrestling, of which that's what the Athletic Commission regulated at the time. And he says, well, I'll make you an inspector. You can come to all the events. That's how I got involved. Over the years, Hugh Carey had left. Mario Cuomo at that time was the secretary.
He was asked to leave.
Well, no, that was that was when he was chairman.
Okay,
No, I'm talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Earlier under Hugh Carey.
Okay.
Mario Cuomo at that time was the Secretary of State.
Oh, wow.
Okay, when Carey was the governor, and the Athletic Commission was a division of the Department of State.
Okay.
Okay, so I had gone in as an inspector. Hugh Carey left. Mario Cuomo came in. I had known Mario because I had meetings with him at that time on various items. Mario appointed me as a deputy commissioner
Wow.
of the State Athletic Commission. And then I eventually became the executive deputy commissioner and director of operations. I ran the entire State Athletic Commission. And I was there until George Pataki became governor. I left and then went with WWE. And how that happened was when I left, I had told Vince and Linda I was leaving, and they said, hey, come on, we want you. And that's how I...
And what year is that now?
Well, boy, I don't even remember.
That's 96.
Yeah, it's about
95, right?
Yeah, about 95.
That's when
because-
Carey comes in.
Yeah, because wrestling
Pataki.
wrestling was regulated by the State Athletic Commission at that time. Wrestling and
Sure.
boxing. So that's how that relationship really, because when I was with the Athletic Commission, I had seen Vince and Linda and Steph and Paul all the time at events because we used to send staff to the wrestling events.
And Steph at that time was a competitor. She was a wrestler.
She did a little of the wrestling, but it was interesting. Steph. So when I first started there, Steph was in college,
Right.
and at the holidays and the summertime, she'd come to work. She would be the receptionist in the lobby, telephone operator. She worked literally every department that WWE had, or WWF at that time.
Yeah.
And she learned the business.
And she learned the business, and she learned it doing literally every job that there was.
the Lee Iacocca model.
Right.
His
Yeah.
father had him sweeping the floors in the assembly line. That's his first introduction to the auto industry. Tell us quickly the story of your induction to the Hall of Fame. I mean, you got your Hall of Fame ring. We can show it on the camera.
Yeah,
there.
I'm wearing the ring.
It's real. He's not actually giving you the finger. He's showing you the ring.
So this was during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and we were flying down. We were doing TV in the baseball dome that the roof came off of.
Oh, in Tampa.
In Tampa.
Yeah, the Tropicana
Tropicana Field. So, we had an obligation to continue to do TV.
Mm-hmm.
Bear in mind that we had no fans, but we were doing TV. So we were flying down on the corporate jet, which was in White Plains. We were flying down every week, Mondays and Fridays, to do TV in front of no fans. And again, the visionary that Vince was, they had contracted with a company to set up like 400 or 500 TV screens around the area of the stadium, and there was call-in numbers, and fans could literally go on and do video, and they would be on one particular screen, and they were watching the matches, and we were picking them up on TV.
Wow.
So if you ever go back to look at the old video, you'll see all these people on TV screens, like hundreds of them.
Wow.
And that's how we had an audience. But there was nobody there.
You didn't put the fake fans like the NBA
No,
did?
no. We actually.
I think President Reagan started off calling baseball games with making the sound effects like that.
Yeah.
Like he was in a stadium and he wasn't.
Yeah, so that's how the fans were there, but they were there on TV video conferencing. So we're on the jet, and we're going down to Tampa, and we're sitting there, and a bunch of us on the jet, and plane lands. Vince says to me, "Hey, I got to," and he said it in a very stern voice. He says, "I got to talk to you." I said, "Okay." I said, "Okay, I'll wait until everybody gets off." He says, "No, I want to see you over at the stadium." I said, "Okay." Bear in mind, I have a home in Orlando.
Yeah.
Right.
And I had some friends from Orlando that were actually going to come over, pick me up later that day to take me back to my house. I was going to stay Monday through Friday because Friday we were going to be back there to do TV. I figured out,
Sure.
I'll stay a week at my house.
Mm-hmm.
So he says to me, "No, I want to see you at the stadium." I said, "Okay." So I ride over with some of the other people and get to the stadium. I'm waiting in the hallway there and talking to some of the wrestlers coming in. Maybe 15 minutes later, Vince and Paul walk in. They ignore me, and Vince goes into an office. He takes one of the rooms, he has an office, and he leaves me standing there for about 15 minutes. I figured, all right, how am I getting home because I'm getting fired? I said, this ain't good. So
Uber to Orlando.
yeah, I said, this ain't good. So finally, one of the other production people come out of his office, and I figured, all right, he was probably in a meeting. That's why I was waiting. And I walk in, and he's behind a desk, and Paul is standing next to him, Triple H. But there's a TV production crew in there, which was weird because why would there be a TV production team in his office?
Now, when you say a crew, you're not talking about just 3 people who work on TV. They had cameras and microphones.
All cameras, microphones, lighting.
So they were prepared for a production.
Right, and I thought
Wow.
that they were probably, at that point, going to tape him for some kind of promo,
Okay.
intro, whatever.
Sure.
And he's sitting behind a desk, and he's looking at a piece of yellow paper, and he says to Paul, he says, I don't know. I don't know which one of these people I want to put in the Hall of Fame, and he's shuffling these pages around. And he says something to the effect, if I remember correctly, Rich, do me a favor, take a look at this list, and who would you put in? I walk behind the desk, and I'm looking at the first page, it's blank. I look at the second page, it's blank. I said, Vince, there's no names here. And Vince says, no, there's not. He says, because the person I'm putting into the Hall of Fame is you.
Oh, my word.
And I said, you're kidding. Well, with that, Paul had his cell phone out, and he had Steph McMahon on video
Wow.
as this was going on. And then, she congratulated me, and, that was all on tape. They had taped that whole thing.
Sure.
After we stopped taping, Vince and I and Paul and Steph talked for a little bit, and Vince told me why he was putting me in and what I meant to the company, and my involvement, and that's how I was nominated.
Wow.
And then so after that was over, I was going to go back to now. Bear in mind, we did the show. The following day was the Hall of Fame. Okay, so I was going to my house in Orlando,
Sure.
figuring I'd probably come back the next day for the Hall of Fame, get my car, drive back. I leave after TV. I'm in the car, and I get my car, and my cell phone goes off, and it's one of our producers. He says, "Hey, we need you here at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning." Now, bear in mind, this is Tampa Bay, and I'm in Orlando.
Right.
I-4, you don't make that in an hour.
Not at 8 o'clock in the
No.
morning.
He says, we need you here at 8 o'clock in the morning for rehearsals. Bring your tuxedo. I said, what tuxedo? He says, your tuxedo for the Hall of Fame. I said, I didn't find out about this until yesterday. I don't have a tuxedo.
I got a golf shirt and a pair of jeans with me.
I said, I think I got a suit at my house in Orlando. He said, all right. So next day I go down, leave at like 5 in the morning to make sure I'm there on time. And everybody's wearing tuxedos and, gowns and whatever. I'm wearing a suit. He says to me, production guy says to me, all right, we need your acceptance speech.
What?
I said, what acceptance speech?
It's 12 hours old to me.
He says,
Yeah.
well, everybody prepared a speech, acceptance speech. He says, because we're going to put it up on a teleprompter. I said, I don't have a speech. So it was funny because there was no crowd there. There was no fans. And, I go on, and there's a big teleprompter in front, that had everybody else's speeches on it. We saw other people inducted right before me.
And who else was inducted with you? If you
Molly Holly. I'm trying to remember. Boy, there were a bunch of us. Molly Holly, I think it was Eric Bischoff. Boy, I can't remember them all. But there were a bunch of us that went in. And Glenn Jacobs was inducted also. They have their speeches on teleprompter. And I'm watching from the back, and they're reading their induction speeches. The guy comes back to me, one of the producers says, "You sure you don't have a speech?" I said, "I don't have a speech." So I said, "How much time do you want me to do?" He says, "Well, we need 2 or 3 minutes out of you." I said, "All right." And I get out, and I just winged it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I did. I winged it. Did it in the first take. A couple of even though they were reading them, had to do
Oh, really?
1 or 2 takes on 1 or 2 of them. So I did it in 1 take, and that's how the induction went.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
it was funny. It was funny, Mike, that all the other inductees knew weeks or months ahead that they were being inducted.
And 12 hours before.
I knew 12 hours before that it was happening.
And you had to drive to Orlando and back. So,
Yeah.
3 of those 12 hours is chewed up.
That was it. It was, yeah.
So Mattingly's not in.
No.
Herring is in.
Pete Rose not in.
Pete Rose not in.
Herring
in.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So
Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Shoeless Joe Jackson's
but
not
I
in.
but I am
Herring.
in.
Herring in.
But I am in with the president of the United States,
You are? Which president is in the WWE?
Trump.
Trump is
Really?
in. That's
Trump,
correct. Yeah.
Trump is in the Trump is in the Hall of Fame. He has a ring like I have.
All right.
I've met him, 3, 4, 5 times personally. I've met
I
him.
can tell you crazy stories about him.
And he did our TV shows a couple of times at Madison Square Garden.
Well, they had that whole thing
with the haircut and
with the
everything.
haircut.
Yeah, and so but the president is an alumni of the Hall of Fame.
In fact, the whole thing with the haircut, I was invited to play golf at Trump National in West Palm well before he was even thought of being the president. It was a golf course. It was a private club, and a friend of mine is a member, and he invited me to play. And in the lobby is a whole trophy case of the photographs and other memorabilia from the WWF at that time, WWE, and the whole haircut situation is there.
Is there? Yeah.
It's no question. Well, we've been going for about 40 minutes, and we haven't even touched on what most people here in the county know you for, is as being a judge. And I, of course, know you because I had the distinction and the honor of trying my first jury trial in front of you, People versus Alma Pert. And it was a long time ago, but I remember all about that.
This when you were in ADA.
I was an ADA.
ADA.
I was a prosecutor,
yeah.
and we arrived at the Liberty Court that morning. We were going to start at 9 o'clock. I was probably there at 5:30. And
Way to go.
Judge Herring was there, and the courtroom had flooded. So they
Right.
had fans all over the place and were mopping up. And I said, this is not the way trial strategy goes in law school.
Yeah.
But I had an opportunity to try that case and got a guilty verdict from the jury. But this is not about that trial. But with all you were doing with the athletic commission and growing up here in Liberty, what was it that got you to run for judge in a position you held for close to 40 years?
Actually, I think it was about 30 some odd years. Don't make me that old.
Close to 40.
Yeah, close to 40. So I was with the Sheriff's Department. I started with the Sullivan County Sheriff's Department as a deputy in 60, I think it was sometime in 60, latest 67, 68.
It was before that concert out in your hometown.
Yeah, my hometown.
Well, I had worked, and I'll tell you a story about that.
But now back then you got hired and you could be in the jail one day and then then on a road patrol the next day.
Yeah, well, I had worked for a couple of sheriffs. It was Wasser, Ray Dunn, and then Wasser came back after Bob Flynn. But I had started there. There was a federal program called the CETA program that picked up salaries at that time. It was federal monies that came in to local municipalities. So I started under the CETA program, 67 or 68. 69, I did the Woodstock Festival. I was out there, flew out on a helicopter. Was supposed to be there for 8 hours, and ended up, I think, 3 days.
You and a lot of
You
other
and a lot of
people.
other people. And you actually have the original security plan that was put together for the Woodstock.
I have that. It's the original.
That was useless.
Yeah, it was.
Well, it's like Bill Parcells says, a game plan is great till you get punched in the mouth.
Yeah. So I still have it. I have because I had the communications, and I had the security plan. I was supposed to pass that on to the next shift coming in when there wasn't any.
The next shift was 4 days later.
So when I left, I kept it. Well, I have that. And then what happened was the Woodstock Ventures, because the county only paid us for the 8 hours. So everything after that, Woodstock Ventures paid us for. And I cashed the check, but I kept the receipt in the envelope. So I got that. I have the program. But the security plan I still have.
And now, originally it was a fence around.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so when that fence goes down, right, I mean, then it's game
everybody,
on at that
everybody,
point.
yeah, they just came in and, but it was 3 days of mud.
3 days of mud.
3 days of mud. So I was with the Sheriff's Department. Was a deputy, became a sergeant under Wasser.
So you're moving up.
Yeah,
Moving up.
I was the director of the Sheriff's Department Youth Division. Also, and in I think it was 74 or 73, somewhere in there. The interesting thing, when I started with the Sheriff's Department, and Bob, Rob, you'd like this, our salary was $5,200 a year.
Oh, my word.
$5,200 a year was, And we had to buy our own uniforms, own guns. We had to buy everything ourselves. But $5,200 was the salary.
So Jim Ginty Sr.
Jim worked there.
And Bobby Blaze worked there too, and
Yep.
and they would tell, just absolutely crazy stuff.
Oh yeah,
about
it was.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a different time, a different time. But I worked with them.
Yeah.
But $5,200 a year was the salary, starting salary.
All right, so
so
the
in
union
70
should be happy where they are.
Yeah,
now.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
And you had to work 100 years to get to the top step.
Exactly.
So I in 74, 70, 73, I think it was, decided, I'm going to do a little something different, and I was going to run for judge.
Now, were you allowed to be a patrolman and a judge at the same time?
No. So
no, I'm just asking. Back then, I don't know.
So Joe Wasser was the sheriff.
Yeah.
I took a leave of absence from the sheriff's department and ran against Dave Cohn, who was a very prominent attorney in Liberty.
Sure.
Very prominent, and was one of the town judges.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran against him, and I lost by 53 votes.
Wow.
53 votes against a very prominent attorney and a very established judge in Liberty. Lost the election.
But now they have a village and town back then.
Back then.
Back then they did.
Okay. And
He doesn't live in the village, so he ran for the town.
I ran
Okay,
for
and
town.
so you're running for town. Okay.
Right. So I lost, went back to work at the sheriff's department, and the following year, the other town judge, Ken Fisk, who at that time was involved with the Liberty Register, which was a local newspaper in Liberty. Liberty had two newspapers at the time, Liberty Register, Liberty Gazette. And Ken was also judge, and he decided he was going to retire. He retired. I got the appointment, and then ran and won. And
the rest is
the rest is history.
Okay, so now we get to a point. You're the town judge. You are the reason, one of the reasons why we have non-lawyer judges, because your legal acumen was second to none. I can say that from having practiced in your court. But at one point, you become the town judge, the village judge, and the town of Fallsburg judge. How did that come to pass that you wound up holding 3 judgeships?
So I was town of Liberty, acting village of Liberty, at that time because I wasn't a village resident, but
you weren't a Fallsburg resident
right.
either.
But you could be, you could be appointed as the acting village.
Okay.
Right.
So I had town of Liberty, acting village. I'm in court one day, in Liberty, and one of my clerks says to me, "Hey, Rich," or Judge, however she addressed me, "there's a Bob Seiss on the phone for you." I said, "Bob Seiss?" She says, "Yeah, he's some judge in Albany." And then it clicked. He was the state administrative judge.
Yeah, administrative judge for this area.
Oh, for the entire state.
Right.
He was the state administrative judge.
Mhm.
There's the Court of Appeals,
Yeah.
chief judge,
Mhm.
and the chief judge and the chief administrative judge runs all
the
courts.
courts.
In the state
Right.
of New York.
Right.
You might want to get on the phone with that guy.
The chief
So I said-
administrator of the courts.
Yeah,
Correct.
he's the chief administrative courts. And so I answer the phone. He says, "Judge Herring?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Bob Seiss." He's calling me judge and introducing himself as Bob Seiss. I said, "Judge, how are you doing?" He says, "I need a favor."
Got a speeding ticket
Yeah.
on the way up to Liberty.
Well, that's what I thought. And because that was the time that they had that whole statewide
Oh, yeah.
investigation and the ticket fixing and around the state.
Wait, there's ticks and fixing
Right.
going around here?
Yeah. So
Well,
he
none
says
of
to
that.
me, "I need a favor," and my heart dropped. Figured, okay, here it comes.
Here it comes.
I said, so I didn't say, "How can I help you?" I said, "What can I do?" Or something like, what can I do for you? Something like that. He says, "We have a vacancy of both judges in the town of Fallsburg."
Now, how does that come about?
Both judges had, at that time, had been removed by at that time it was called the Court of the Judiciary. Later on, it became the State Commission on Judicial Conduct.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, but it was the court of the judiciary at that time, and Judge Bentley Cassell was the judge.
That guy sounds pretty serious.
It was
Cool
in charge of the court of judiciary. So, and why I remember these names 40 years later, I don't know. But Sy says to me, we have a vacancy of both judges in Fallsburg, and we want you to be appointed as the town of Fallsburg judge. I said, Judge, with all due respect, I got Liberty in the village, pretty busy. He says, and how he framed it, I don't exactly recall, but something to the effect that we know about you, we know in his eyes that I'm good, I'm respected,
Yeah, fair.
and I'd be the right person for the appointment. I said, well, one of the problems, Judge, is, it's an adjoining town, but I can't run there to do their arraignments. They don't have a lockup in Fallsburg. And he says, we're taking care of that. We're signing an order that Fallsburg could come to Liberty for arraignments on misdemeanor cases because you had
Felonies, they
felonies,
could
you
anywhere.
could go anywhere, but misdemeanors you couldn't. He says, we're taking care of the order. He says, and it'll only be for a while. It's not going to be...
Famous last words.
Yeah, it's not going to be that long until Fallsburg makes an appointment. I said, all right. I said, I'll do it. I'll hold court there one night a week. He said, that's fine if that's all they need. If they need more, you're going to have to handle it. I said, all right. I didn't get paid.
Wow, thanks for showing up.
There you go.
Yep, did not get paid for it.
See, and that goes to my point. There is no justice in the justice court.
That's it. So I had a meeting with Joe Jaffe, who was the district attorney of
DA.
Sullivan County at that time. I think Carl Silverstein, I think, was the head of legal aid at that time, if I recall correct. And I met with the clerks of the Fallsburg court, and I went there. It was one night a week for, if I had a trial or something like that, I would go on a little longer. And that short term, I think, extended to 6 months. And then eventually they appointed Yitz Kantrowitz as Fallsburg judge. And then I went back to
Just running two courts.
running my, doing
Just
Liberty.
two courts.
So that's how that I was Fallsburg. So I was Liberty, Village Liberty, and Fallsburg all at the same time. And it was funny because I gave Mike before the newspaper article.
Yeah, have it right here.
That I found cleaning out an old file where I was appointed a Fallsburg judge. Yeah.
Replacement judge to be named. South Fallsburg Liberty Town Judge Richard Herring is expected to begin hearing cases Wednesday in the town of Fallsburg as a temporary replacement for the two judges that were no longer on the bench.
Yep. So that's how that happened.
So Judge, as always, Rob, this is the fastest hour of the week.
It goes by pretty fast.
It goes pretty fast, and there's no question that we've got to have Judge Herring back because I don't even know that we scratched the surface of what he has to offer.
Well, we didn't get into the boxing.
Yeah,
We didn't get into the boxing.
We needed boxing, and I know 50 stories that could fill, literally 3 hours of a show that he's told me.
Well, Judge, we're definitely going to have you back because I'm sure that the people of Sullivan County really are going to enjoy hearing, particularly this episode of Eye on Sullivan. And folks, if you like the show and you enjoy the content, we got a lot of great feedback in the last couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, we have.
When we had the candidates for sheriff on, and
Yeah.
we're going to have candidates for other offices on. But it's not a political show, so we'll have interesting people from around the county that are
Correct.
here, and you may not even know.
Well, we
that
find
they're
them
here.
interesting.
We find them interesting, and some people find us interesting, and some people wish they couldn't find us at all.
Well, I'll give you one fast
Yep.
anecdote of something related to boxing. We'll go into it another time. I did 21 boxing shows in Sullivan County.
Wow.
Including Mike Tyson, as you know.
Yes.
And
At the Stevens.
we'll talk about that next time. But we were going up to Binghamton, New York for a Tracy Patterson fight that we were doing in Binghamton. And we all decided that we were going to meet in Liberty
Makes
and have lunch. And we walked into a diner in Liberty. It was me, Floyd Patterson, Larry Holmes, and Joe Frazier.
Wow.
All three former heavyweight champions of the world. And we walked into a diner in Sullivan County, and there was an attorney, Richie Gross, if you know Richie.
Richie Gross's office then is my office now.
Right.
And that's where the contract for the Woodstock rental was signed. To come full circle.
Right, and Richie Gross was there. And I think he dropped his plate when we all walked in. So we'll get into that on the next.
Four Hall of Famers, by the way.
All four world heavyweight champions and all Hall of Famers.
So,
And
folks,
you.
so folks, we want to hear your feedback. We want to get your impressions of Ion Sullivan, and you can reach out to us with a comment or a suggestion for other shows. You reach us at Ion Sullivan. That's EYE on Sullivan at gmail.com. And you can find us on Spotify. You can find us on YouTube. And we'd love to have you subscribe. Our objective now is to get to be up to the 1,000 listener level, 1,000 people in our audience. And to do that, we need you to subscribe. So when you log on to YouTube or onto Spotify, you want to hit that button to subscribe. You want to also smash that like button and help us out to build and become part of the Ion Sullivan.
You're a fast learner there, Mike McGuire.
1,000 people.
Hey, Mike, can
I take instruction well.
Mike, can I make an observation?
You sure can.
Corinne doesn't say that, but go ahead.
No, I know she doesn't.
Just a very fast observation for you and Rob. With all the negative things that are said about Sullivan County, and we've all heard it, okay?
Well, Rob and I.
Yeah.
Maybe more than others.
But a show like this, and this was one of the reasons I said I would absolutely do it, it's one of the few ways that legitimate news about the county is brought out, about the positive things, and in some cases you bring out some of the negatives.
Negative things. Yeah,
But it's a way for people to really hear, because Sullivan County really, other than the Sullivan County Democrat, doesn't really have an avenue to get factual information.
Correct. So that was the whole point. You've been with Mike and I at lunch before,
Yep.
and we're sitting there, we're talking, and this went on for years, right? And then sometimes we'd have different people come join us at our table, from state senators to the sheriff,
Congressman.
and you're sitting there and you're just talking about issues of Sullivan County.
Yep.
And our former state senator is now the deputy for, the regional deputy for the EPA. I mean, he's in charge of 7 states, Puerto Rico and St. Thomas, and we're sitting there talking about his duties. I mean, it's kind of interesting, the people you meet, and there are so many interesting people in Sullivan County, and we didn't want to be, one side or the other. We just want people to come on and tell their story, because we find them pretty interesting.
Well, I'll give you a fast one, because I know the time is running out. But when I was judge, one of the Sullivan County probation officers that was in my court all the time is now the New York State Budget Director.
Blake Washington.
Blake Washington, right. And
his sister hopes to be balancing budgets in Sullivan County next year.
Right.
Correct.
And, Blake was in my court all the time, but he is now the New York State Budget Director.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of good people out there.
Think about that story. The guy's a probation officer. Now he's running the budgets for the state of New York.
Right.
His father, was in office in the town of Thompson. His sister's running for the treasurer's position here.
Don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anyone now. Don't tell anyone. She doesn't want anyone to know that she's running, God forbid.
Yeah.
And so we love you, Captain.
Well, I really want to thank you for the opportunity to do this show, and would look forward to coming back anytime.
Well, Judge, it was our honor. And once again, folks, drop us a line, submit a comment to us. It's ionsullivan@gmail.com. That's EYE on Sullivan@gmail.com. On Spotify, on YouTube, you want to be sure to subscribe so you become a plank holder. You become one of the first 1,000 subscribers to Ion Sullivan. When you watch us on YouTube, be sure to hit that like button. That helps us out a lot. It allows us to continue to bring you good content about the good, the bad, and there's no ugly in Sullivan County. Once again, on behalf of Rob Doherty, Judge Herring here today, this is Mike McGuire. We thank you all for listening and watching. Remember, subscribe to Eye on Sullivan. Drop us a comment at eyeonsullivan@gmail.com and share your observations with us. Have a great week, folks. We'll be back next week with another episode of Eye on Sullivan.